Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the TED Talk. As you can see, we're back with another interview. It's been a bit of a break because of the major, because of all the tournaments that have been going on, and it's not only me that didn't have time; it's all of the players that have been going through some crazy scheduling stuff. But I'm really delighted to welcome my ninth guest on the panel, Mr. Kraghen, ECSTATIC's very own, one of I'd say one of the biggest prospects from the younger generation of Danish CS. How are you doing, my brother?
I'm very good, thank you. How about you, Ted?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Weather outside is nice. I feel like I'm living in the jungle, although because it's 34 degrees, sunny 1 second, and then the other second it's raining and it's pouring outside. But we're here to talk about CS, not about the weather. First of all, I wanted to ask you because right now and for the last couple months, you've been now over half an year. You've been a part of ECSTATIC. But recently, things for you guys have been going really well. So talk me through the atmosphere and how things have been going in the team right now, because you just finished second at the CCT Online finals. You were able to qualify for the Katowice in Melbourne. You were able to qualify for the Katowice for the ESL Challenger in Melbourne, of course. You were able to qualify for ESL Challenger Katowice as well, which you haven't played yet. So from the outside, at least, it feels like things are starting to click in the team.
Yeah, I mean the atmosphere is very well lately. We have some results, as you say, that go our way, and that's just very nice. I think the reasoning being is that we like have this belief now that we're starting to win things, and I just think that we gain more and more confidence as the time goes by and as the matches go our way.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, the fact that we did mention that you qualified for a couple LAN tournaments. You even played in Melbourne. Have you found it hard playing on LAN? And is there a big difference for you? And do you feel like there is a difference between the performance of the team on LAN and online? Because this is the case, I guess. A lot of people are wondering about that, especially when it comes to younger players such as yourself that started their professional careers around COVID times.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say like when thinking about myself, I wouldn't say that there's so much of a difference. I mean, I like playing on land because of the very smooth servers and like you don't feel this online pingy stuff. So, I mean, I like it a lot. I know, but in terms of performance-wise, I think we do okay compared to online. There might be some nerfs, I would say. Like in Melbourne, we had some nerf as well coming in. Also, for example, Salazar hasn't played like any big lands ever.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. Like in terms of when in the RMR in Malta we went 0-3 and so that didn't go well, you could say. But I don't know if that's random or if it was because it was like our first thing with this team.
Yeah. That was, I guess, from the start of the year. I guess this was kind of like, I don't want to say your biggest disappointment as an organization in the team, but you surely didn't feel good that you weren't able to qualify for the major. But it felt like that was the catalyst for you guys to start qualifying for bigger tournaments and start playing even better. How did you go through it? Did you have a serious talk after the tournament? And was there something specific that you did change after not qualifying for the major that you think elevated your team and helped you guys to get to the next level, even if it's mentally only and not necessarily something in the server?
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of talks when coming home from Malta because, like, not only did we perform bad at the major or at the RMR, sorry, but we also had shit online results when
Yeah.
we came home. So we had a lot of talks on how to improve both our maps, but also like gain these small percentages that would help us win more and more matches. So I think that's how we like turned it around, you could say, by gaining
Hmm.
these small percentages in our favor.
Okay. And in terms of changes, I guess we can't really miss out on the fact that you did a roster change around that point. You bring in Nodius, you bench Cabby, and then a couple months before that, you brought in Salazar, who at the time of you signing him was one of the most unproven, let's say, AWPers in the Danish scene, right? Especially, well, proven maybe in the Danish domestic scene, but not internationally, without any international experience. And you replace Breezer. How would you compare? Why do you think the team needed those changes? And could you just elevate on the reason that you guys went for those changes and how bringing in obviously Nodius and Salazar helped your gameplay?
Yeah, I think that in the end it just didn't click. You could say like not only in team wise, but also like we we don't have like ecstatic. They can't just be satisfied with being number 80 in the world or something.
Yeah.
And when results are like that, there's just use for changes sometimes. And I think that was the case the first time. And then the second time, like with Cabby, we were okay, but then it was starting to going down, 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 and then the organization took like the the charge and said, now we're grabbing Nodius, and like here we are.
Hmm. Okay, that's interesting. So it wasn't the player's decision actually to go for that roster change, but it was kind of more the organization pushing for it.
Yeah,
Okay, I by the way, this is a little bit off topic, but I'm really interested. What's your opinion on how things should be happening in a team when it comes to the roster changes? Do you agree with the fact that your organization should have a strong voice, let's say, in making those roster changes, or you feel like it should be only the players, or maybe just a collision in the middle of both worlds?
I think it should be a mix, but
Yeah,
like I'm a very big fan of like the coach and the staff having a lot to say, because otherwise, it would just be something like four guys of the team, let's talk tonight. This guy's being shit lately. I think we have to do
yeah.
something about it, and I don't think that's right for the team. So I like the fact that coaches and people above the team have a lot to say as well, because like yeah, they're the ones uh, in charge of this team, you could say.
Yeah. Okay. And I wanted to last topic on current form and what's going on with Ecstatic and you guys as a team, specifically about Salazar because we pointed out that he's the most inexperienced one on the server. Even though you yourself started your career around COVID times, we're gonna get to that later on in the interview. But he's a lot more unexperienced. But it feels like he felt a bit natural going into the lineup. It felt like he didn't really need a lot of time to adapt and feel his, let's say, find his comfort zone, so to speak. Did it feel like that from inside of the team? And do you feel like he's showing what he's capable of right now, or there's a lot more for him, a lot more room for him to develop as a player?
I think to start with, there's a lot of room for development, as you say. But like when he joined the team, we were all like very surprised, sorry, of his individual skill, but also like his way of um just being in the team. You
Yeah,
could say like he connected with us very well, and he's a very humble guy, like which helps a lot. But I think he knows what he has to develop in terms of his AWPing. So I think he can go way higher than this, even though that he's been showing. I think he's been showing decent form.
yeah. I was wondering on your opinion on that because, in Danish, it feels like in the Danish structure, especially on tier 2 level, when let's say your Oper is not device, because when your Oper is device, you cannot play for him, right? But
Yeah,
it felt like in a lot of the other teams, even when you look at Astralis when they had Lucky and Farley, you look at even Copenhagen Flames, even back in the day, now Tricked and all of those teams, even the teams that you've played on, it feels like it's never been in the Danish scene just four players playing for the Oper. You know what I mean? It feels like it's a
yeah,
lot more rifle orientated. Why do you feel like that is happening, by the way? Because this is a big discrepancy that at least from the point of view of someone looking at the games from the outside, it makes, well, it kind of gets my eyes out, right? I'm just looking at it. I'm like, okay, those guys are, well, they're not trying to set up. They're not trying to play for their Oper. It's kind of like they're playing for the rifle. They're playing to win. And if the Oper somehow finds his place under the sun, so to speak, if he somehow finds a way to shine, then fair enough. But why do you feel like Danish teams are going for that approach? And how do you feel like it is for an Oper to try and find his place under the sun in that kind of an environment?
If I'm honest, I think that we have a lack of like great AWPers in Denmark. Like, of course, you have KD and Device, and maybe also like you could say Farley,
Yeah,
but like in terms of our skill level, like the tier 2, 3 scene, I would say that we're lacking AWPers actually, like great AWPers, and I think that might be why the riflers in Denmark are way more prioritized because, like, I would say we have a lot of great riflers. So I think that could be why, but also I think that in the way the meta is right now, like at least in T side, the AWPers need to be more like supportive and
Yeah.
then step up when it really matters. Like post plans and clutches and so on. And then of course they have the freedom to be the best in the server on the city side, which I think you know, they have to be able to do themselves. Like it's just not something that just comes with it, like being an
Hmm.
opera. So I think in terms of T side, it's very much, or it's more supportive than it was once. Like I know that if you're Saibu, you can just run in banana with an AVP, right, and
Yeah.
kill 3 people. But that's not the case with like Danish operas who isn't like tier 1, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that could have something to do with it.
Yeah, it's kind of like you remember back in the days when people were talking about simple, and every oper wants to be like simple, and then people were going out and being like, if you want to learn how to be an oper, watch Guardian play, don't watch simple play, because you're not gonna be able to mimic what simple is doing. So it's pretty much what you're talking about, and it's an interesting perspective to it. I feel like I agree to a massive extent, but I guess that's enough of those questions surrounding ecstatic for now. Now I want to go back and do something that we're doing with every single guest here, and I want to ask you the good old basic ass question: how did you get into gaming initially? How old were you? What were the first games that you started playing? And when did CS arrive at the horizon?
In terms of how I got into gaming, I would say it was from my father. Like he played, I think it's called Condition Zero.
Yeah.
One of the first Counter Strikes, and maybe also 1.6. And back then, I was like, I was like no years old almost, so I didn't start playing when I was 4, no. But like, I think that's what got me into gaming. Like, my father has always worked with computers, like, so I got a computer early, and I just think that I started to get this hobby, like, um, and yes, of course, I played games before I played CS. I can't really remember the order of games like that got me into playing, but I think I started playing like CS around when I was like 13, 14 years old, I think.
Okay. And initially, because I assume you started playing CS:GO from the get go, right? You weren't
Yeah,
playing a
yeah,
lot
I
of
didn't playing
1.6.
Source or 1.6. No, not at all.
Yeah. When do you remember what was, because for a lot of players and a lot of people, including even myself, there was a specific tournament that back in the day I'd see and I'd go like, I want to work in that industry. Was there a moment for you when you were just looking at pro play, or you didn't need to look at a tournament, or was it more like you just playing the game and being like, you know what, I want to become pro at this? So when was the moment when you actually realized you wanted to give up your entire life and invest everything that you've got in that game?
I think I started playing before, like I saw the tournaments, but I
Hmm.
think like around the time when TSM changed to Astralis was
Okay.
like when it was really hyped in Denmark, and that was when I was like in maybe 7th grade or 8th grade or something like that. And I think that's when I started to wanting to pursue this lifestyle.
Yeah, so I assume there's no point to ask you if there was a team that motivated you extra and convinced you. I guess the answer is pretty
Yeah,
obvious.
it's pretty clear, I think.
So can we conclude that one day you would want to play on Astralis?
I mean, that could be a dream, you could say, but I'm not like it's not like a goal for me to like I
Yeah.
need to play for Astralis because that's the biggest organization in Denmark. I just like I just want to develop as a player and the team I am, and if it's Astralis, it's Astralis.
Yeah. Okay. I get you. I get you. So initially, one thing that I was wondering about, obviously, with a lot of the Danish players, it's a bit different when you compare it, let's say, to Balkan players. Let's say. In Denmark, you yourself said that your father used to play Condition Zero when you were younger, so I guess your parents were a lot more supportive for you when you wanted to get into professional gameplay. But When did you start getting into teams, and do you remember what was the first team that you played on before Masonic? Because you joined Masonic in 2021, and before that, you haven't really had any official teams on HOTV. But was that the first serious project that you joined, and how did you get to it?
No, I actually had a lot of projects, you could say, but that was when I wasn't like good at the game. Like I
Yeah,
think even before I came level 10 on Faceit, I started playing like team wise because it was a thing in Denmark where you went to Facebook groups and then you said, "Hello, me and my friend is searching for 3 players and we want to play." You know,
yeah,
then you just make a team. But like I can't remember all the team names, but just before I joined Masonic, I was attending an education with CS. Like it's called Campus Vejle.
yeah,
I don't know if you know it. And back then we had Cyclone as teacher.
yeah.
So
Is the thing that
that's that.
Mythar integrated into Danish
Yeah, yeah,
schools,
yeah.
right? We had him
When
actually. He was my previous guest on the interviews on
when I
here.
signed up for the school or the education, he was
Yeah,
on there as a teacher. But then
yeah.
when I came, he went to North, I think, or Mousebots or something,
Hmm.
and then we had Cyclone instead. Um, so like I think that was when my first real team like was. That was back then. That was right before Masonic.
Yeah. By the way, can you give us a little bit more depth from the perspective of a player? Because as I told you, I've had Mythar as a guest on the panel, and we had a chat about uh, the things that he's done for the Danish system when it comes to schools and integrating esports and all of that good stuff. But how was it from a guy that was inside of the program? How was one day in school when you know that you have a subject that says professional CS or esports or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit overhyped because like it's not like in our school it says we have CS:GO today. Like this was like a real education where you finish your day of school and
Yeah.
then you can have the esports. So it's not like on the schedule it says
Yeah,
today
yeah,
we have
yeah.
4 hours of Counter Strike. But like it was a bit of a rough period because it was right before COVID. Like it was in 19, I think.
Yeah.
I started. So I mean, the first year was quite nice, I would say. Like we got some hours with the teachers, and we got some some like tips and tricks and coaching. But like then the second year, um it it like it fell apart, you could say, because of COVID and people not being there, and they couldn't, we couldn't be there with each other. Everything had to be online, and yeah. But I think the first year was quite sick in terms of that.
Yeah. So you think that there is actually a reason for them to be doing that, right? You feel like this is something useful and something that young players can benefit from, right?
Yeah, I think it inspires a lot of young people. I think it's quite difficult to like make schools where you build CS players or you build League of Legends players.
Yeah.
But I think it's very great in inspiring people to like go this way with esports.
Do you know if there's another Danish player? Because now I thought of it. I actually didn't know that. I didn't realize because back in the day when that was a thing, I was a Nord fan. But for me, I can't realize that this was already like 5 years ago or 6 years ago. So it's kind of crazy to realize that there was people that were students back then that are professional players now, such as yourself. Do you know if there's
Yeah,
any other Danish professional players that went to schools that had that program?
yeah. Um, I went. One of my classmates. I don't know if you know him, Vester.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
played
of
for
course. He
Astralis
was on
Talent.
Astralis Talent, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was my classmate back then, actually.
Yeah.
And then let me think. Um, I don't know actually, but there are some. There are some.
You know what? You know what? You getting Vester straight on the bat and thinking that there's others. That's enough. That means that it's working, right? That means that
I
you're
mean,
you're not just the only one.
yeah, there is for sure others, but I can't think of them right now. But like Vesta is a good buddy of mine, and
Okay.
I could remember him.
Okay. Before we get into the Masonic days, because obviously this is really interesting. It was around COVID when you got into the organization. I wanted to ask you because you did mention you were working with Cyclone. I guess that he played a pretty big role in the way that you built yourself up as a player. back in the days, but was there a player professionally that inspired you, or a player that you felt like you had a pretty similar game style to, and a player that you copied the most from?
I would say no, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I was a lot of I looked a lot up to Device back then,
Yeah.
but like as I became better, I started caring less about the approach, the tier ones, because like yeah, when you get closer to becoming like them, you're not really that what's it called?
That invested into watching them, maybe that
Yeah, yeah,
interested. Yeah.
yeah. Like you're not such a fanboy,
Yeah.
in that way. So
Okay, so
I
you
wouldn't
you
say
kind
that.
of have the
I wouldn't
mindset,
say
I
there is
want to
like
get your place, not to be a fan
yeah,
of where
yeah.
you are.
But also just because I think there wasn't like a guy I'm like, okay, the pre is sick. I want to play like him, or I want to play all his positions. Like I
Yeah.
don't think it was like that.
Okay. That's really nice to hear. It's kind of like you're not trying to be the second someone else. You're trying to be the first kraghen,
Yeah.
which is a great approach. So, getting to it, Masonic. How did things happen there? How did you get picked up? How did you guys start playing, and what did it feel like finally being on a professional organization and taking this as your full-time job? Because I assume that was around the time when you started getting salary. You were like, you know what, this is my job now.
Yeah. I knew Black, the in-game leader back then.
Yeah.
I knew him from earlier, and I asked him if he wanted to play with us back then on the Campus Violet team, and he said yes because he had like no team back then, and he wanted to build something up with some young Danes.
Yeah.
And then he together with some other created Masonic, and that was when I started playing for my first professional team with a professional contract. But like that was still when I was in school, so that was not like full time. But it was my first professional team.
Yeah, and how did it feel? Because I assume it felt a little bit different prior to how you were playing before that. So, what would you say were the main differences in your approach to the game, your approach to the practicing, aspect of it, and all of it? How did your mindset shift into playing for an organization like that, or was it just the same for you, and you were already acting to it and treating it as your job even prior to joining Masonic?
No, I think it was just way more professional, like overall, because it was my first team with a real in-game leader, I would say, and we had a lot of more possibilities. Like when we started the team, we got the opportunity to play the best league in Denmark, which we couldn't before.
Yeah.
So that gave us some possibilities. But then we also started playing HLTV tournaments and matches. So I think that kickstarted the professionalism of my CS career, if you can say that.
Yeah. Okay. So you spent around an year on Masonic. You guys finally start getting some alright results. You start, finding your form, establishing yourself as a pretty stable team. But then ECSTATIC comes through with a pretty interesting roster shuffle that not a lot of people expected. So I guess because I did some digging and I actually found out you haven't done none of you guys from ECSTATIC have done any prolonged interviews to talk about uh how did it actually happen, the entire process, because it was kind of crazy. A trio from Masonic joining ECSTATIC, getting an extra AWPer, Manx transitioning from just being a rifle to being a full-time IGO and being the only one that actually stays around from the previous ECSTATIC lineup. So how did it get to it, and how did you guys make the decision of keeping Manx as an IGO, getting Breezer as the AWPer? So how was the entire experience for all of you?
I think the reason why they did it was because that Fasher was going to Fnatic, and they knew that for a long time. And after that, I think the team crumbled almost because like Brett from Sky was going to another team, and Dafu had some issues with his wrist, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So they couldn't really continue. And also Cello wasn't even on contract; he was just on trial. So I think they decided to like, okay, we need to build a new team, and I think Manx together with the organization decided that they wanted to do a Danish team, and then they got in contact with us asking if we wanted to join as a trio back in Masonic, and um, back then we were asked if we want to join the team with Manx as in-game leader. Um, Uh, and then yeah, that's just pretty much how it happened. And then we also got in contact with Breezer.
Yeah, so I wanted to do a little bit of nitpicking on Manx and what he brings to the table because, as you pointed out, you've had the chance to work with. Now you haven't played with Cyclone, but you've worked with one of the I guess you can say the bigger brains from the Danish scene, right? When it comes to CS, you've played with a couple other IGLs. So how would you compare Manx as an IGL to other in-game leaders that you've played under? Do you think that he brings something special to the table, and what would you say is his stronger or strongest side as a captain?
I think, understanding the game, the meta, and how people approach different maps and games is the strength of Max. And I think he is a lot. I think he's a very dedicated to this role he has. Like, it's not just like, oh, I'm not just being game leader because why not? Like, so I think he's very good at being detailed and like giving it his all, you could say.
Yeah.
And I think he's adapted very well to this role, actually.
Okay, would you say that you're a team that because nowadays I'd say that the meta is IGLs being a little bit more mid-round ish orientated, right? Just playing a lot of defaults and the best IGLs in the world being the ones that are really good in mid-round calling. Would you say that it's the same thing with you guys in the server? And another thing that I was really curious about is who are the, because in every single team there's the IJ obviously, but there's one or two people really often that talk a lot as well and give a lot of ideas. Is there someone like that on your team? Because I know that I've heard that you like giving ideas as well, so now you can give me some insight. Is there people on your team that love helping out Manx, and is there people that are pretty vocal as well?
Yeah, I mean, our like we have a saying that everyone can like contribute to like mid rounding and stuff, but I think mainly Nodius, when he came into the team, he was very vocal and very helpsome in terms of strats and or not like strats, but things to do in like when adapting to the enemy, like
Yeah,
what we need to do when they do X, but
yeah,
also like we have done some positioning changing, like role changing lately, that makes me also be that guy who has a lot of responsibility now. That I also need to like, because I'm very main focused, like the main parts of the maps. So I
yeah,
also have
yeah.
to contribute a lot now. So that's also my responsibility.
Yeah, so that's kind of like you picking up some of the, let's say, so-called star roles on CT sites. And back in the
Yeah,
days, you used to be that guy, let's say, who's playing warehouse on Nuke, right? So you were a bit on your lonesome. You were given the freedom, and you knew that you can win the round for your team, but if you go down, that doesn't really bother the team all that much. So now
yeah.
when you have to take more responsibility, how do you feel as a player, and do you feel like it's more comfortable for you knowing that a lot more relies on you?
I think yes, but I haven't. It's quite new for me. But I would say it's mostly on the T sides. Like for example, I'm a
Okay.
lot in the map control now, which I wasn't before. Like for example, I was B lurk on overpass. I was
Hmm.
mid lurk on vertigo. Where now I am the main control and the main fighting. It's gonna be me. So I have a lot of responsibility in um saying to Manx what he doesn't see, or explaining to him what he doesn't know while he is everywhere around the map.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It kind of feels like you're starting to shift, because I was about to ask you a pretty, I'd say a pretty interesting question, because it's really hard to find a specific answer to it. What would you how would you identify yourself as a player? How would you describe yourself as a player? And do you think that there's a strong trait that describes you really well and identifies you as one? I guess that maybe you can kind of connect that to the role changes right now, but yeah,
Yeah,
we're still gonna stick with that question.
I think aggressiveness actually. I think that
Okay.
I like to be very aggressive, and I like to take like decisions in mid rounds, like you know um, important decisions in a round, uh, which often is aggressive. I would say is like my way of playing, but also like just being ice cold in hard rounds or difficult situations like that. I think that's something I'm quite good at.
Okay. So you'd say that nerves are not really something that bothers you all that much in tough situations. Does that count on long games as well, or
I mean,
it's just online?
I have nerves as well. Like
Yeah.
I don't think there's many players in our tier and like who doesn't have nerves, but I think it's how you handle them because it's not always bad to have nerves. You can also be excited for a game, which also I would say is nerves. So, for example, in Melbourne, when I had like a couple of good matches, I think that the nerves can help you if you overcome them early. You could say.
Yeah, it's kind of like in football. There's a term that says, if your first pass on the field is successful, then the match is gonna be you're gonna be the best player on the field, right? But if you fail the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
pass, it's really hard to get back on your feet, so to speak. But this is really nice to hear, and I wanted to, just get a little bit more detail on some of your recent tournaments, guys, because obviously you did say that you've been changing some roles, but in the meantime, it feels like you haven't really needed too much time to get used to them, and you're already getting some good results even with the new roles. I wanted to ask you about the CCT Online finals and the fact that you guys were able to actually get into the grand finals without losing a single map, which was crazy, and I don't think a lot of people expected that. I'm not gonna lie, I was casting the tournament. I was like, I feel like you guys can do some good damage. I wasn't ready for you to go to the final without dropping a single map though. But then it was pretty interesting the fact that, in the upper bracket final, you beat Forza 2-0, Inferno and Nuke being the two maps, and then in the grand final, you faced off against the same team on the same maps, and you lost both of them. So, what do you think was the big difference between, the first game and the second? Obviously, we can't really compare two matches of CS, it's not how it works, but what do you guys feel changed between those two games, and what helped out Force, let's say, in a way to steal away the victory?
I think Force had a great way of like changing their game plan from first to second game. Like for example, on Inferno, they played one way in the first game and we won like 1917 or something, and then they played a little different on the next map, and then they were just better individually on that day as well. I would say.
Yeah. Could you
Um,
elaborate on the differences? Some maybe not
I'm not,
maybe don't go into detail and give us everything from the kitchen, but some little details.
yeah, I would say like in in the first game they had like a game plan of like going a lot together and doing stuff many people at the time,
Yeah.
whereas on in the second game they were a little more like we couldn't figure out where they were, and they were surprising us a bit, and all of a sudden Jerry's there and he's supposed to be here and stuff like that, I would say.
Okay.
So I don't know quite how to explain it, but they just changed their game plan in a good way in terms of how we played as well. I think like they evaluated a bit on the first match and said, okay, how do we do differently this time?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I was wondering about that because the typical, I guess, stereotype surrounding Danish players and Danish teams is always that you guys are really good tactically, right? And this is the strong part of the game for you guys. Individually, you've always had some of the best players in the world, but Denmark's never been famous only because of their individual players, right? It's been mainly because of tactics. So how do you guys deal with a situation like that when, let's say, in the same tournament you gotta face the same team twice, but you lose the first game? So what's the team process? How are the preparations like going into those important games?
It's funny you say it because we talked about it after we lost to Force, like
Okay.
if we need to like go into it differently, because like it's not easy to play someone and then win and then play them at the day after, and like it's just a lot of mind games, and we haven't really figured out what to do in that way, I think. But in terms of the whole tournament, we have been changing our preparations a bit, which has helped us a lot. But yeah, that I think that shows on the results we had in CCT for an example as well.
Yeah. I guess recently it's been all good news for you guys, and this is obviously something that people can't know. But myself and yourself, we've been talking about having you on the panel for a long time, but you've been playing a lot of officials. You haven't really had any time, but it's really commendable that you've been able to get better when the schedule is so tight. And that leaves us with the last thing that I kind of wanted to ask you about is how are you managing to play that amount of officials and still find some time to evaluate on your mistakes and make it work and get better as a team, because we know that this is one of the main problems of a lot of tier 2 teams, the fact that you gotta play a big amount of tournaments to get money, qualify for the bigger tournaments, get into tier 1. In the same time though, if you're playing 3 best of 3s a day, you don't really have the time to practice, look at your mistakes, and become better. So you're kind of lost in that limbo of just playing 2 to 3 best of 3s per day, playing tournaments, getting into the playoffs, losing there, not being able to qualify for tier 1 tournaments, and suddenly you even have no time to see why you've lost a certain game.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of about prioritizing, right? Because like lately we haven't had, we if we win 2-0 like 5 matches in a row, there isn't a lot to look at. Like, of course there are mistakes, but we would rather focus on the game coming up then.
Yeah.
But like, I would say that we have been very good at, when we have so many officials that we don't have much time for practice, then instead we just like discuss the things that went wrong, or discuss the things that we aren't really agreeing on, and then just like going to a private server and discussing it then, rather than watching our demos or practicing maps. So a lot more like theory instead of practicing.
Okay. I guess that's an answer that's really good. And to kind of do some nitpicking onto that, because I'm a guy that loves having talks about coaches and analysts and stuff. Uh, because you guys currently have no coach, right? And officially, I'm not sure if you have an analyst. I'm not sure about it. But how are you guys able to work without having that support staff? Because we see that oftentimes that makes a pretty big difference. And do you feel like this is something that you would need in the shorter future, let's say, to get your game onto the next level?
Um, I mean, we just got rid of our coach, and
Yeah.
so we haven't really played a lot without him. But I think he contributed a bit to like the tactical wise or the anti-stratting wise. But I think on a long term we might need a coach. I mean, it's not my decision, but I also think that we are very good at um like making a game plan um based on how the opponents play,
Yeah.
compared to like saying, okay, they do this and this, so we need to anti that, and we need to kill them there because they're always there. Like, instead of that, we just make a game plan on how they play.
Yeah. Okay. Because I was interested, because when I saw the announcement of TML being removed from the organization, I was like, okay, I'm looking forward to seeing who they hire as their new coach. And then 1 week passes, 2 weeks passes, and I'm like, okay, when's that announcement coming out? Are they playing with a coach, or will they wait for CS2 to come forward? And I did tell you that the last question was one of the last ones, but that was one of the last ones regarding your current form as a team. But uh, I can't miss out on asking you, have you been able to try CS2? What do you think about it? And do you think that the scene will change in a significant way when the new game comes out?
I mean, me personally, I haven't really thought a lot about CS2. It's quite funny because I don't own the game right now. Like, I
Oh,
haven't
you
gotten
don't
the
have
beta
it?
yet. I don't have the beta yet,
Yeah,
no.
me
But
neither,
like,
mate. Don't worry.
it's rough out here. Nah, but like, I played it once when I was the day before we went to Melbourne, because I was at Mag's place and he has it, so I just tried it for like 10-15 minutes, and I haven't really thought a lot about it. Do I like it? Is it shit? How does it feel, and the tick rate and stuff? So I'm not quite sure. I mean, it's quite a future we don't know a lot about, us players. Like, because I've also been thinking like, okay, we are playing quite well lately, and in like 2 months it's a new game. How is
Yeah.
that gonna affect us, and stuff like that? So I think that we just play the rest of the season. You know, we have the ESL Challenger in Katowice.
Mhm.
So right now that is my focus. And then when we have player break in like 10 days, then I can think about CS2, and then it might be released and stuff like that. So right now I don't think a lot about it, but I think it should be good. Like it seems like they are taking a lot
The feedback.
of the feedback, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, from the players. So I think it might be good, but it's really a hard question. Like, is it gonna be good or not?
Yeah. It's kind of like it's not more do you think it's going to be good or not, or kind of like what's your mindset going into it, and the fact that you have to transition into an e-game for the first time, because you look at, let's say, people like kraghen, like Apex, the old dogs of the scene. They've done that already, right? They
Yeah,
started
yeah,
playing another game and then they transition into CS:GO, and now they will transition again. But for someone like you that started in CS:GO and has played only CS:GO professionally, I guess that even mentally it could be a little bit challenging, or it could be even exciting.
yeah. I think it's as you say exciting, but I've also been thinking like, how is this affecting me? How is this affecting our team? And but like I would say that it's just I don't think it's gonna ruin CS or something like that, because it's still CS:GO in a way. Like it's just I hope that they're just gonna fix stuff and like do changes, because like we also see changes in CS:GO. Like okay, Anubis come in, it's still a good game. The M4 is nerfed, it's still a good game. You know,
Yeah.
like I don't think it's gonna be like oh, we're transitioning into a new game that nobody knows how to play and we all have to play Valorant. Like
Yeah. Oh
I
no,
think
no,
it's
no.
gonna.
We're not talking about.
I'm
Look. We're not NA. We're not from the NA. We're not
no,
going
no.
to Valorant.
But I'm gonna just say I'm excited for CS2 just because I don't know how it's gonna be.
Okay, I'm really excited for it as well. I'm really excited to see how you guys do in the remaining of the season. ESO Challenger Katowice is going to be really interesting. Another LAN event for you guys, and another event that I would say is pretty winnable for you lot. I'm pretty sure you
You think?
share my opinion. Yeah, I mean, why not? Is there a team is there a team there that you are afraid to play against? This is a good bonus question, because you look at me
I
like
mean,
that. I feel like I might believe you can win it more than you believe.
yeah. I think I saw Ins last night. They were okay.
Yeah.
Maybe they had a bit of a long match. Maybe I think they are quite good at CS. But no, of course, we are there to win it, and we're there to do our best. But like if we come home and we don't beat Ins, it's not like I'm gonna
Yeah,
be
you're
very
not
sad.
gonna cry yourself to sleep. But
No,
yeah,
that's
because I was
that's
looking
exactly
at
what I mean.
I was looking at the teams, and I even have it opened in front of me right now. I'd say 9Z is beatable. Party Astronauts, Bravado, Pain, Forza VP, and Ents. So I guess you take out Ents and Virtus Pro. All of the other teams are teams that you're used to playing against, or teams that don't have any European experience whatsoever. So I guess maybe going into the event is going to be interesting. Have you guys actually started preparing for that event already?
No, actually not. We're starting on Monday, like
Okay.
tomorrow,
Yeah.
and we're gonna have our last practice and preparation before we leave at Thursday, and then that's the last thing of our season. So we have to like give it our all and see how it goes.
Okay. Thank you a lot. I'm gonna be looking forward to it. I'm gonna be looking forward to watching you guys play against Ensign, VP, and Forza, and all of the other teams, because it's going to be a hell of an exciting event. And once again, I want to thank you for joining me on the panel. It's been a great conversation. Wish you the best of luck until the end of CS:GO, and as well for CS2, of course. Is there something that you want to plug, or say to the people watching and supporting you guys when you play?
I want to say thank you for inviting me, and I want to say that I think you guys should consider watching us at in Poland. I think it will be a great show.
Okay, well, thank you, ladies and gents. That was me, Ted, and that was Kraghen from ECSTATIC. Thank you for watching this interview. Reminding you, if you haven't checked out the other 8 interviews that I've done already, and those are not just players, it's coaches, analysts, players, all types of interesting esports personalities. You can go and check them out. His links are going to be in the description. And of course, make sure to leave me a comment and let me know if there is a player, a coach, an analyst, or even a caster, or I don't know, any kind of a CS person that you want me to bring on the panel and have a nice little chit chat and do an interview with them. Thank you for being with us. I'll see you really, really soon again. Stay safe.